on the march. The Empire's on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
Sold out for weeks due to the difficult and extensive proprietary process behind its creation, the exclusive InfoWars Life Secret 12 formulation is now back in stock. This ultra-clean vitamin B12 nutraceutical has been carefully crafted and developed over the last 2 years and is based on cellular science of how your body actively absorbs essential nutrients. Most forms of vitamin B12 are highly processed and synthetic and could not be properly absorbed by the body. Secret 12 is a binary of nutramedical grade, bioavailable coenzyme forms of B12, methylcobalamin, the same kind used in B12 injections, and adenosylcobalamin, the most bioactive form that has been created with our proprietary process. Secret 12 is taken by mouth, right on the tongue, and then swallowed. No needles, no injections. Don't take my word for it. Try it for yourself. Discover the secret. Secret 12. Supplies of Secret 12 are very limited. Secure yours today at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139.
The government's Department of Homeland Security is buying up loads of ammo. At the same time, they're restricting civilians' rights to own and purchase firearms. Can you put 2 and 2 together? Infidel Body Armor can stop every round, including hollow points and .308 sniper rounds, is reasonably priced and fully legal. But for how long? Go to InfidelBodyArmor.com, spelled INFIDEL bodyarmor.com. Infidel Body Armor. Just won't quit.
When cells become toxic, they die early and aging sets in. No one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. Just one of the key compounds, BioPQQ, is backed by major clinical studies. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? We now have the synergistic solution. Secure your DNA force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. Used since before the days of the Roman Empire to support the body's natural systems and enhance overall health. Introducing the new InfoWarsLife.com Oil of Oregano formulation, a highly advanced nutraceutical form of this key herb that has been traditionally used by civilizations for thousands of years to promote health. We have now procured the most high quality and potent forms of oregano oil on the market, sourced from top leading manufacturers to ensure a concentrated level of bioactive ingredients. Extracted directly from the wild herb and sealed in easy-to-use capsules, you will no longer need to endure the burning of liquid oregano on the tongue. Wild crafted from the Mediterranean oregano species that experts agree is one of the most powerful and most challenging to acquire. This winter season, it's more important than ever to secure this true form of oil of oregano. Now available in our limited first run at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
Listening to an InfoWars.com frontline report. It's Alex Jones.
I'm about trying to get stuff done. And the truth is, Ted Cruz and Rand Paul were the figureheads of the Second Amendment movement that barely defeated the gun ban of 2 years ago. Barely. And it's been Ted Cruz and Rand Paul that have been helping shoot down different legislation to try to restrict supplements in this country. And they've been trying to stop the borders being wide open. They've been trying to stop the aiding and abetting of Al-Qaeda. So when people, and I've heard the listeners, they don't have a lot of faith in Ted Cruz or Rand Paul, especially Ted Cruz, sit back and don't at least get excited about people talking about freedom, there's something wrong. And I'm not criticizing anybody. I get it. But the longer I do this, the more I realize how much power we've really got when we start taking action. Take Dr. Group. When do I promote something? When it's a win-win-win. I won't promote something if I don't truly research it and then use it and then believe in it. High-quality water filters so you don't drink glyphosates and fluoride and hundreds of other chemicals that are in the water supplies. Sell it at a low price, high quality. I sleep good at night. Or vitamin D3. The government, the UN and others are obsessed with saying don't get sunlight and don't take vitamin D. And suppressing studies about it. Why? Well, same reason they put fluoride in the water. Because you'll be more awake, more conscious, more happy if you have vitamin D3. Am I selling vitamin D3? Absolutely. Do I take vitamin D3? Absolutely. See, it's a win, 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 win. And I'm not going to keep belaboring buying Winter Sun from InfoWarsLife.com. You know, we're getting into the spring in some areas now, but in my experience, most people don't get enough sun in the spring and summer. And then in the fall and winter, it is essential. So, Winter Sun, it's definitely got the best packaging of anything we put out so far. And it's amazing. It goes very well with the vitamin B12 Secret 12. InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com, or 888-253-3139. I'm not going to belabor that anymore. Dr. Group recap. Start back over with the history, because you got cut off by the break. Go through what's happening with vitamin D3, difference between vitamin D2, and why you think they're suppressing this, and why Cass Sunstein is so obsessed with trying to keep it from the public.
There has definitely been a suppression. There's no doubt about it. Well, the government really recognized the importance of sunlight, actually, in 1931, and they recommended sunlight for health. And even in 1934, Schlitz Beer actually fortified their beer with vitamin D, and then the FDA banned them from doing that in 1937. Around 1940 is when there was so much research coming out that vitamin D and sunlight was actually good for you. And that lasted until 1950. And right around 1950, that's when the dermatologists and the doctors, for that matter, started coming out and saying that they did not recommend sun and that sunlight was actually damaging. And it's interesting that right around that time was when Coppertone came out with the first synthetic sunscreen, which was heavily marketed, and that was in the 1950s. So there was a big campaign throughout the 1950s against the sun and against you getting the natural D, because they realized from the 1930s to the 1950s how important vitamin D production was. And they also knew that you couldn't really get enough vitamin D through the foods that you were eating, and that you really needed to be out in the sun. Because what happens is when you're out in the sun hits your skin, and you have like a cholesterol-type molecule in your skin, and that produces vitamin D. And then that actually has to go and be processed into the liver to create what's called 25-hydroxy, which is D3. And then it goes and gets processed in the kidneys, which is the kidneys activate the D3. And then it goes back into the intestines, which then it goes back into your bloodstream. But moving forward with what's happened in society, when you actually are in the sun, it takes your D3 that you produce in the sun lasts 2 to 3 times longer than if it's consumed in your body. And as a matter of fact, now they know that 2,000 genes in your system have been identified that are regulated by vitamin D. And again, you know, I'm not the one to prescribe a lot, and I thought that everybody was iodine deficient, but I know now for a fact that I'm still continuing. There's 50,000 abstracts on vitamin D, continuing to do research on this subject. And not only are you going to be vitamin D deficient in the summers and the winters anymore, but I'm telling you that the whole world is pretty much vitamin D deficient. And this global warming thing, if global warming was really happening, then there would be more sunlight, and then there would be probably less cases of vitamin D deficiency. But here's what happened in the introduction of fossil fuels and chemicals from the 1950s, 1960s. See, we activate vitamin D with the UVB rays. And the UVB rays are really only going to be out from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Those are the only times during the day. Now, I used to say, well, you need to get your sunlight early in the morning and late in the afternoon. But what I'm finding out is early in the morning and late in the afternoon, and when the sunlight rays are bent at such a strong angle, that's usually the UVA rays and not the UVB rays. So now we know that the best time to get vitamin D production is going to be between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. But what's happened is, and this is why it's not just in the winter, is the introduction of air pollution with the fossil fuels, the chemicals, everything that's being released into the air and the smog that it's creating, which are actually blocking or reflecting the UVB rays. And that also ties into the geoengineering, and it also ties into the excessive amount of chemtrail use. So what's happening is they're blocking. Yes, there's an attack on vitamin D because you're not going to get enough in the foods that you eat. Everybody needs to be on it, but they're also creating and blocking the UVB rays to create vitamin D deficiency.
And let me go further. You can actually search NASA, Earth is now darker from condensation trails, whether you call them chemtrails or condensation trails. They admit the Earth was 20-something a decade ago. Now they say the Earth is 30% darker. There's the Guardian. Earth is 20% darker, say experts. And again, that's a client science, Jim Henson at Goddard Institute at NASA. But that was back in 2003. The latest numbers, and the guys can pull those up, I'm going from memory, is 31% darker. It's accelerating. So we're talking about terraforming, bizarre-sounding stuff here. This is really going on. Why would the White House science czar come out and push for restricting it? And then why would the White House regulations czar come out and say, ban people saying sunlight's good for you? I mean, is that just setting the bar so high that they're the boss and that they can control reality, like Karl Rove said? I mean, why are they so obsessed with blocking sunlight or vitamin D3?
Well, again, it's a hormone, and I'm going to explain a lot of the things that happen in the body here in a second. First of all, every single tissue and cell in your body has a vitamin D receptor, just like iodine. And they know now, there was actually a study done in Boston that showed you can make 0 vitamin D from November to February. And now, if you draw a line from Atlanta, Georgia, right across the southern United States, anything above that line, you're not going to be able to make any vitamin D. Also, there's increased spraying, usually in the southern states. And there was even a study done on lifeguards in Florida that were in the sun all day, every day. And their vitamin D levels were right at about 100 nanograms per milliliter. The normal D levels in your blood, I think, should be around 50 nanograms per milliliter. The normal medical range is anywhere from 30 to 100 nanograms per milliliter. So what you're seeing is even in, and recently they've tested people that were out in the sun in Nepal and India that are in the sun all day long, and they're still showing deficient vitamin D levels. What happened, too, is the push for everybody to wear sunscreen. Not only are the sunscreens toxic and have cancer-causing compounds in them, but if you apply sunscreen for 2 or 3, I mean, you could apply it one day, and it's still going to be on your skin, even if you take a shower, and it reduces your vitamin D production for 2 to 3 days by up to 98%. So
it's unbelievable. I mean, this is the vitamin D3 conspiracy. Then we've got the problem of most vitamin D that's out there that's supplemented in foods and things is vitamin D2. Explain to people the differences.
Well, vitamin D2, most of it is synthetic, actually, and it's ergocalciferol, and that's what you're going to find in the majority of supplements. D2 is found naturally in mushrooms, and D3, which is the vegan form, you're going to find in lichen, which is what we use to do the extraction so we can create the winter sun, which is just the best way in the world to get your vitamin D levels because it's in a D3 form. It's easily absorbable. It's easily broken down by the liver and the kidneys. It's in it's a vegetable glycerin base, and it comes from lichen, so it's a vegan source. So you don't have to worry about cod liver oil, the fish oils, which are contaminated with mercury. Plus, it's a stress on the environment and everything else.
Let's get into, because I have a Mercola article here, vitamin D deficiency linked to depression, pain, inflammatory bowel disease, and breast cancer.
Well, right now, you even have 50 million teens that are deficient in vitamin D. And here's some of the things that vitamin D is linked to. Increases the risk of chronic disease and cancer. It weakens the body's immune system. It's associated with infertility, You know, we talk a lot about the sterility and infertility things out there, and vitamin D is one of the things that causes poor birth outcomes.